What do you boys think the spending cap? Because Ineos and Man United have voted against it, and some of the reasons for that sort of stem from they believe it's going to slow down the rebuild. Interestingly, I think it's Aston Villa have also voted against it. Manchester City voted against it. But here are some of the stats according to the current trading accounts. Only Chelsea would be, ironically, they say they've got no financial issues. Only Chelsea would have to reduce their spending under the spending cap. City, pretty close to it. They only have about 8 million more they could sort of currently spend based on their average yearly expenditure. Man United, about 90 million more. Liverpool, about the same. But every other club actually would have quite a huge amount of money more they could theoretically spend if there's a spending cap, which I think they base it on 5 times the broadcast revenue of the lowest team in the league. But do you think this could be a hindrance, not just to Man United, but to other teams? Or do you think a spending cap for the Premier League is a good thing?
I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing at all. For United, yeah, not good, man. Not good, because obviously they need a full rebuild and they're already like close to the top. At least City are close to the top, but we've got a squad that can compete for the Premier League already and compete for the Champions League. Yeah, it's and apparently Jim Ratcliffe not happy with this at all, because this is difficult. And also you got another reason why. The rules previously to this, which was the squad cost ratio, which UEFA are using, it encourages owners to increase revenue. So it encourages owners, and this is what Jim Ratcliffe was going to do, is it encourages owners to build up the local area, get bars, get restaurants, to get fans to spend more money, to bring in more revenue, because the more revenue you have, the more money you can spend. Well, that's gone out the window now. That's gone out the window. You still need the revenue because it's still there, but it's now capped. It's now capped at around 518 million quid or whatever it is, or whatever the fee is going to be. It's not been agreed. So this is going to make it difficult for United. It certainly is. And you can see why United voted against it. You can see why City certainly voted against it. As for Chelsea, I think they're probably in a similar position as well, because they're actually looking like they would have breached the rules, and they're in disarray. So it's a bit of a madness, to be honest with you. I'm not entirely sure why they brought it in.
Well, this is LB thinks it's a conspiracy to stop City spending, when in reality, something needs to happen in football in terms of FFP.
Can I challenge that, Terry?
Of course you can.
Okay, so the original rules, which were voted in, which was the squad cost ratio, which the Premier League copied UEFA, City were third bottom. Then added in the cap now, and all of a sudden, we're second. We're second worst. We went from third bottom to second worst overnight because of this cap. Yeah, and in terms of in FFP, why? You've got a league which is thriving. We just had a 3-team title race until match day 35. Yeah, so the title races are cooking. One of the best title races we've had in a long, long time. You had Newcastle break into the top 4 last year. You've now got Aston Villa break into the top 4 next year, and they're looking to kick on. You've got Spurs, who lost one of the greatest strikers we've ever seen and are still up in there in 5th. I don't understand why so many people think that we desperately need this FFP. We had it. We had the squad cost ratio. That's exactly what UEFA used. The Premier League copied it. Everyone was like, okay. I still wasn't a massive fan because you know my views on it, but you can only spend a certain amount of your revenue. Cool, sustainability, whatever. I'll go with it. I'm still not a massive fan, but I'll go with it. And then all of a sudden they've gone, well, actually now we're going to cap it. So the clubs are now capped to spend. I just don't really get why.
I'm surprised that you care about this so much, LB, because this is going to sort Man City out personally. Like, you've got your squad, bro. Everyone else trying to catch up with you, and they can't now because of PSR, because of FFP, because of now this spending cap. If I'm Man City, I'll be chilling. I've got my squad. Let everyone catch up.
I just don't agree with it in principle.
Yeah, but do you know what? I get where you're coming from, Dan. But there's two things. There's how it impacts us internally, and then what it does on a European front. So if Real Madrid's and Bayern Munich's and Barcelona's don't have a spending cap, then as their revenues grow over time, they will be able to offer more wages than Premier League teams to the best players in the world.
And that is a worry. That is a worry.
Yeah, so they will be able to turn around and say, do you know what, Haaland? City, as it stands right with this cap, it doesn't matter if City increase their revenue by £1 billion. They won't be able to offer Haaland. They've got £8 million spare. They can't pay Haaland any more money. But say Real Madrid revenues increased by 200 million. They say, listen, Haaland, we want to give £100 million extra to you. City can do nothing now to compete with that offer. Equally, when it comes internally, is what I don't like about it is this. It's funny how City fans are now want to join the cartel clubs, right? But they're quote unquote. But my view is this: one thing about American sport that I find weird, considering how the sort of a capitalist society that America is the worst performing and run teams get the best picks in the draft. That has always felt backwards to me. I believe that success should equal reward, right? And when I used to work in a phone shop, I started managing it, and I created a system where the person that sold the most phones, who was top of the list, every time a new customer came in, they got first dibs on that customer unless they were with somebody else. So the better you performed, the more customers you got to see than the lower performers. Some people hated it. Oh, but that's not fair. How can I catch up? Make sure you close your deals when they come in. We used to do things where we used to do street fighting, get out and talk to people walking past and try and encourage them to come in. Do whatever you got to do to bring people into the shop to sell them a phone. But I believe in rewarding success. So if, for instance, and let's take it away from our clubs, let's say Aston Villa now, who are currently 226 million below the threshold, but their turnovers are lower. Next year, they win the Prem. Then they retain it. Then they win the Champions League. They go strength to strength to strength. They keep increasing their revenue. But there will come a point where they can't spend anymore. And it's a case of, hang on a minute. So you're now being, to a degree, you're almost being punished for being successful. It's teams below you can spend more and have got more room to improve, but you kind of hit a ceiling and you sort of stay there. There's an element of that just, and maybe I see it this way. Man United are not at the top right now because we've been awful for a decade. But maybe it's because my team has been. Maybe for a team that's more middle of the road, you see it as, this could be an opportunity to get to the next level. So I don't feel like I feel like it takes away from success. I think success should be rewarded with more income. More income means you can pay the better players more money to keep them so you can keep trying to be successful. My biggest fear, though, is what it does with our European counterparts who will be rubbing their hands together at this. They really will be rubbing their hands together.
Well, another thing that I've got to say, is that the last, whenever we speak about FFP, and again, we always have disagreements, me and you, Terry, because I've always said I don't believe it's about creating clubs that are sustainable. I've never bought into that. Terry, you have, and we've had debates about it in the past, right? With this, again, go back to the squad cost ratio, where you had to have your spend under 80% of your revenue. Again, I wasn't massively for it, but it backed up your argument that you can't spend more than your revenue, and it's to make a sustainability thing. Adding this anchor in, that just completely disproves any point about sustainability, because you are now limiting what people are spending. And I seen a couple of comments in the chat. Terry's right. I just checked. Next year, Real Madrid are allowed to spend the equivalent of £620 million. That's over £100 million more than the top British teams, top English teams. So already there, we're at a disadvantage. We've got a £100 million black hole that we're not allowed to spend, which Real Madrid are allowed to spend. Now, some fans who are not in the Champions League will be like, they don't care, it's irrelevant to them. But
yeah.
We need to be competing with these. Have you seen the way Real Madrid are moving? By the way, they're building a galactical team.
Of course, and this is the thing. This makes sense. So the draft is what makes the NBA and other leagues more competitive. Football is dominated by the same teams. I understand why it exists. So please don't confuse I have a lack of understanding of why it exists. But I believe this. If you're an NBA team and your owner runs you brilliantly, builds a great squad, and you win, you become successful, that shouldn't, for me, in my opinion, that essentially hinders you in terms of the rebuild of that team, because the lesser teams get the better younger generation coming through. I don't like that. This is the weirdest comment, though. So, Terry, you are a communist. Now, what I'm asking for is the opposite of that, my friend. I'm saying if a team is successful and it grows its revenues off the back of it, it should be able to spend that revenue on continuing to make its team the most successful. The same as business. I know to a degree, there are competition laws, but if I'm successful at running my YouTube channel and it keeps growing, I can pay to have the best guests available to keep it growing. It shouldn't be, Terry. Imagine this is how YouTube runs. Don Robbie, your YouTube channel is the best and it's doing so well. YouTube's now going to block you from making certain types of content, or you can't have any of the new young talent coming through to appear on your show to let the smaller channels catch up. That's essentially what it is. And I don't believe in that type of behavior. And this year says, Terry, you're backwards, mate. Thank you. You can't give the best players to the best teams. I didn't say you should give the players to the best teams. No one's going to say, City, you won the league. There's the new Messi. But they should be able to spend the money they generate through their success on continuing to grow their squad to try and stay at the top. Equally, revenues will continue to grow. Where's all this additional money going to go? It's going to sit in the club. Who's going to get it?
That's what I've been saying.
Where's it going to go?
This is why I've been against like hard spending caps and player caps, right? Because yes, it's crazy how these players get paid £500,000 a week.
Read this here. It's a good thing for people that
Exactly.
want dividends. Dividends.
Exactly.
City won't do this, but trust me, the Glazers, maybe the Cronkies, definitely Chelsea's owners, the dividends they're going to start taking out of these clubs as the money grows and they can't spend it. These owners, this is what some of these owners will want it for. And even some of the smaller clubs, some of your smaller clubs, as by the way, the TV deals increase because of the top 6, top 7, top 8 teams. The teams nearer the middle, as their revenues grow, they're not going to start spending that much more. Some of them will. Some of them though will just go, you know what? We can take 80 million out in dividends here.
Yeah.
It's not good. I think
the owners, Terry, that don't want to spend money will be creaming themselves this morning, lads. Yeah, because now they've got an excuse, and this is why people need to wake up and look inwards towards their own football clubs. Yeah, FSG are billionaires. The Glazers are billionaires. There's no reason these guys shouldn't be putting their hand in the pocket and spending money on these football clubs. Yeah, they're all billionaires, mate. But you don't want to look at your own owners. You just want to blame everyone else. And like I say, these rules now will give these owners an excuse, because when fans turn around and say, why are you not putting money into the club and buying players? They'll go, oh, well, sorry, we're too close to the cap.
Well, the thing is, but even then, they won't be able to pump. What's the point? So Man United's owners now have a perfect excuse to not pump any money, and we can only spend £89 million more. So then pumping £100 million in becomes irrelevant because we can't spend it. So this is the thing. It will probably help Arsenal and Liverpool and Spurs in the short term, because suddenly City can't keep spending more money. Man United can't keep spending more money. You guys can increase your spending a little bit, and it's more of an even playing field then. You know, you've caught but then when you get to a certain limit and then the European clubs are outspending you, for me, this sounds like short-term thinking with long-term problems for teams, depending on how good you get. And I like the idea of you being capped to spending 85% of your turnover, because that way you're rewarding growth of any team of any size, but you're still limiting how much people can spend. But yeah, listen, for me, I'm not, something about this concerns me, not short-term, but medium to long-term. There's going to be a lot of people not involved directly in football, as in players and managers, that are going to be losing, that they're going to be taking a lot of money out of the game here. By the way, it isn't going to go down to the grassroots. You know, I wouldn't even mind if they said we're going to do it. But, you know, everyone who's had a season ticket for more than a decade now gets to go to football for free. We're going to put on free travel up and down the country for away fans. If they did something like that with it, I could stomach it more. But there's going to be fat cats making more money out of this. And they're going to do it under the guise of fairness. And actually, they're going to be doing it I'm not a fan at all.